All right, guys, I'm going to do an update on Bitcoin and some of the crypto miners. So, I've in my previous YouTube video, I talked about trying to figure out if this is a completed wave three, right? And then we don't make it up here for completed wave three, or if this is a 3 of 5 for wave three. And I think the termination or the invalidation level is that daily close under 59.8. So up to this point, until we get a daily close under the 59,800, I'm going to keep believing that this is wave three. And now we're filling out wave 4 of 5 for wave three, which could take us to 75 to 90K area. What I see as possibilities right now is, the bullish thesis would be one of two things. The bullish thesis would be an ABCDE correction, right, where we have a sell-off and we find some support in either this demand zone right here or this current demand zone right here, as long as we have no closes under 59,800. Then LA wave theory says as long as we fill up this E wave, we should see higher as long as the previous pivot low holds. Now, another bullish scenario could be this was wave 4, and then this is a ending diagonal, which comes in waves of 3s. So it's possible that this could be an ending diagonal, and we make it to maybe 75, 80K, and then the wave terminates, and then we go for wave 4, right? That's the two bullish theses. Now, a bearish thesis is this is the end of wave 3, in which we would go to wave 4 to the larger degree, in which this could be an ABC correction, which ultimately sends us to the 50 to 53,000 area, which is where I think wave 4 to the larger degree would take us if this was a completed wave 3, right? So we're kind of fiddling in the middle. We did make a higher high here for this pivot high, but not this pivot high, which, that doesn't take us out of the woodwork, right? That could just be an ABC correction, right? ABC. So it didn't really justify anything, which is what I warned in my Bitcoin update yesterday morning about us being in supply, and it was very likely that there would be a sell-off. So the invalidation level for the bullish thesis is 59,800, a daily close under that. So until then, I'm going to lean towards an ABCDE correction, or a ending diagonal, right? So those are the ones I'm leaning towards until the thesis is invalidated. So unfortunately, there's been a lot of rallying, and we're 13.5% away from this invalidation level. And I'm going to cover the miners, but as you could see in the miners and many other crypto sympathy plays, everything's been showing insane weakness. So realistically, what I'm going to warn with miners, it's even possible that they could break down and have their bearish thesis play out, and Bitcoin actually never even break below 59,800, right? Because let's be real, if we start breaking down here and we find support again, that 13% drop is going to decimate sympathy plays. At least I would think so, unless there's healthy rotation, which we haven't been experiencing so far. So that's something to consider with Bitcoin. And then this is the thesis for Bitcoin. Now let's go to crypto, or the miners. So I've had levels for CLSK, RIOT, and Mara Force that I think the cumulative outcome could give us the bearish thesis. And what we're currently at is we're really right there at the validation level for RIOT and CLSK, right? And if those start to invalidate, I think the bearish thesis is going to play out for Mara. Now, a few weeks ago, I posted an entire crypto video, and I think even Mara specifically, and I talked about, this feels like a crowded trade. There's a reason why they didn't rally in correlation with Bitcoin. Bitcoin made all new highs, and none of these miners made new highs, right? They're very compressed. And what I think is my thesis is it's a very crowded trade for retail. Wall Street doesn't want to pay retail. And naturally, what does people do? What do retail do? They always want the get rich quick scheme. So rather than investing in Bitcoin, they invested in, sympathy plays that they known have rallied before. Now, CLSK did a offering and then sold off. I called the top here, warned of a head and shoulders, and so far we're down 40%. Now, I was anticipating a reaction here where we could see maybe a lower high and then an ABC correction. But if CPI comes in really bad, this could be a very aggressive sell-off in a very short term to where these B waves never really got to recover, which then just causes a drastic drop-off. If that were to happen, I think that would panic everyone. That would cause capitulation over the next 4 to 8 weeks, in which we could get my thesis about a rally in May or June, right? So until we get a daily close under 1450-ish, which, like I said, we're right there. So as a risk to reward perspective, if you're bullish and you're just hell committed, convinced that we're going to get this rally and this sell-off, this really bad sell-off isn't going to happen, you're only at a 4% risk for however much upside you see, right? If this is the purple path, then, we could see $45 from here, right? Which is nearly a 300% rally, 200%, sorry. But let's say that this is the ABC wave, right? And then inflation comes in really bad and Bitcoin starts breaking down. Well, let's just do a measured move of wave A from this compressed level, which could be a B wave. That's the high. The measured move would just fall down here. Where is that at? It's in weekly demand. In an oversold condition, also around the value area low of this entire move, right? Now, typically, if this would be a completed wave 5, which would be the yellow path, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That should be like a 61% retracement area, which could be this buy zone. Now there is a gap, which sometimes these get filled, or these become or act as a magnet of price, which would also fall in the zone or area of this VPOC area, this value area high for this wave 1. And then in perspective, you could also see this as a back test. This is an SR flip, became resistance, and then we back test, it finds it as support, and then we go higher from here. So the absolute worst case scenario would be a measured move from this breakdown if we get a daily close under 1450 and we get all the way down to like the $6 to $8 range. That is absolutely worst case scenario. Now, the best case scenario is we only have a 4% risk here, and CPI, or maybe it's not even CPI that does it, but we just start rallying from here and we break this higher high or this lower high pivot, right? If we break this lower high pivot right here of around 1780, then that can kind of give us a heads up that now we're making higher highs on the smaller time frame, and then we would look for a higher low, right? So that would be the idea there. So if we were to rally from here, maybe we break above it, we backtest, and we start trucking and doing higher highs. That would be the perfect scenario here. Now, if we do invalidate this thesis, right, and RIOT invalidates its thesis, there's a lot of risk here. There's a lot of cumulative data giving us a warning and a heads up that this could be a lot worse than anticipated. So that's why I have my levels drawn and my stop loss is strict. Now, given I've downsized drastically in crypto, right? I seen it as overextended, and I wasn't and haven't been confident in buying back until I see confirmation of the uptrend, and I haven't gotten it yet, right? Now, what we have here is, what I see is a completed wave 5. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this yellow path could play out, right? And if that yellow path plays out, then it's very possible that this corrective ABC pattern plays out, right? But for this ABC pattern to be playing out, we need to break below this 1475, 1450 area and then close below it. I think we close below that, then that is a completed wave, a 5 wave for wave 3. And now we are going to pull back, right? But until we do that, I'm going to believe in the purple thesis, the bull thesis, right? The bull thesis is this is a wave 1, this is a wave 2, and now this is wave 3, but this is maybe a wave 1 of 3, right? And how this works is, the rule is wave 2 cannot exceed past the beginning of wave 1, which is 1475-ish. If we go into pre-market at 1462, right? So as long as we do not break below 1462, then it's possible this is a wave 2 pullback, right? And that's what we want to keep in mind. Now, given it's not looking good, right? I made a bearish goggles post 2 weeks ago, and it's been playing out fairly well, and everything's just been showing weakness. The market looks toppy. SPY sold off drastically today with my warning. And we got to see what happens with the CPI data tomorrow. I think it's really going to set the tone for the next directional move, right? But right now, the bull thesis is intact as long as we do not have a daily close under 1450-ish, 1475-ish. And the risk to reward here is amazing, right? Like, let's say it's even, we do get this higher degree B wave and we go up there to that support level or that supply level. And if we were to take a position here and we say daily close under 1450, maybe it's like 1440-ish. Let's do that, 6% risk. And let's say we get all the way up to the supply. That is a 6% risk for 46% upside. That's nearly an 8-to-1 risk to reward. That's amazing. So that's something to keep into consideration. This isn't an active trade idea in my Patreon, but this is a public trade idea for you to take if you'd like, because it's there. The risk to reward is there. It's just which path is it going to take, the purple or the yellow? So 1450, 1475, and we're right there, right? You could take a position from here, and then if we break below that, then I would cut it at least. I'm going to be telling my Patreon members to be doing it, because then, even from the first level of 1450, the top of this range is 12%. But let's say we go all the way down here, 22%, all the way to the bottom, 27%. Yeah, I'm not willing to do that drawdown. I'm going to not have an ego, and I'm not going to keep saying to the moon with miners. And if the trade is crowded and they want to fucking drop this by 40% and shake out a lot of early buyers, then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait and I'm going to find the bottom and I'm going to buy it from there. So that's CLSK. RIOT is another one that's like right there on the cusp. The bullish thesis here is this is 5 waves, and then this was a wave 2, and then this is the beginning of wave 3. And if that is the case, then this would be wave 1 of wave 3. This is wave 2 of wave 3, and now this is wave 3 of wave 3. And we're in the same situation where I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that should be 5 waves, right? I would like to think that's 5 waves. Now, if that's 5 waves, and this is wave 2 of 3, the rule is wave 2 cannot extend past wave 1, the bottom of wave 1, which is $19.60 or $9.60, $9.50 area. I actually bought this on my Patreon this morning because of it being in the demand zone and us having a minimal risk, right? Like at the current price, we're looking at a 4% risk. If you let it drop down, maybe 940, you're looking at 5 or 6% risk. And if this is the beginning of wave 3, I can see us going nearly $30 a share, which is a 300% move. 200% move. Sorry, my math is terrible today. So the risk to reward is there, but even though the risk to reward is there, the charts are looking ugly, man. They really are. Like this doesn't look like an ABC correction. The B wave isn't, the A wave isn't the super extended, and then C wave extremely short like this. What this makes me almost concerned about is this the same play out that's going to happen with CLSK, where we have a massive sell-off, and that's a B wave of a C wave? Because then the measured move would be this, right? Go ahead and measure it. And if I measure it there, we drop into here, right? Which is a monthly demand zone. Now, if it falls into a monthly demand zone, that is the perfect entry area, right? But what is that, $5.30 to $7? But that would be a perfect entry. And I kept warning, and that could be an extended wave 2 because this is the beginning of wave 1, right? But if we got that entry, then we're looking at a rocket ship in the second half of the year. It's just what kind of drawdown are we going to receive up to that point, right? Because we drop down here, all the way in here, looking at 30, 40% drawdown. And once again, I gotta say it a million times, 40% downside isn't the same as upside. Now you got to make 66%. to get back to break even from this entry, which is why, if we start breaking below these levels, like I have to reduce risk. I'm going to sell my position, maybe even consider closing it. And I think all of this is going to tell us probably by tomorrow. The CPI data is coming tomorrow, and it's going to set the tone, right? FOMC minutes is also at 2 o'clock. But the Fed speaker, the Federal Reserve, has been saying, they need to see progress. And last month they said 2 months was not a trend, even though, that's the start of a trend. CPI for the last previous 2 months has been increasing, which to me it looks like a trend. Now they've said, the first 2 months of the year, it's kind of typical to have high inflation, and March should be that month where it lowers. So if March is the one that's expected to really not be high, and it comes in high, that's a really bad sign. And that's also 3 months, which it's like, damn me if you're not going to call that a trend at this point, right? It's a quarter of a year. So we have to keep this in mind. Now, even though the charts look extremely bearish, right? The risk to reward is amazing here, right? It really is. But we do have to keep in mind that if we give this up, if we give these levels up, right? If we give these levels up and CPI comes in bad, it's like we have a bear cycle alignment, right? We have the technicals looking terrible, and we have the fundamentals looking terrible, right? Inflation is bad. Dollar goes up. Dollar pressures Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes down. Sympathy plays like miners go down, right? That's how it works. So then sentiment, right? So it's like the same 3 pillars for a bull market is the same 3 pillars for a bear market or a bear cycle, right? Now, I don't think this would be a 2-year downturn. I think this would be like a 1 to 3 month downturn. We get down in here and then we buy it, and then we literally see all new highs, right? That's what I think the probable outcome would be. But we have technicals looking terrible, fundamentals let us know tomorrow, and then sentiment will follow, right? Sentiment will follow because a lot of people are going to be like, oh wow, it really is that bad, right? I mentioned this last time. This was all-time low ascending support. That's a trend indicator, right? And it was resected once, twice, 3 times, and now we're basing under it. And this looks like a break under, back test, and starting to reject. So the risk profile is there, right? My position sizes aren't big in miners or crypto. I think my biggest position sizes right now are China. I think China is about to get its turn, especially with tomorrow. US CPI data is 8:30. Then you have FOMC minutes at 2. And then tomorrow night is inflation data for China. And higher inflation is good for China. But guess what? Also, higher inflation in China is bad for America because of import. And today, NEO's up 6%, XPEV is up around the same, BABA is up 2%, and I have a lot of indicators on their chart specifically, making me believe that they're at a bottom, right? So I would not be surprised if rotation, if the negative thesis does happen. I think China is about to rally regardless. But even if America goes down, I would not be surprised if there's rotation in China over these next few weeks. But back to miners. The invalidation levels are 950, 960-ish, daily close under it with RIOT. CLSK is, 1450, 1475. We're right there, right? We're right there. Mara, further away from the invalidation level for me. It's 1450, right? 1450, which is a 19% drawdown just for this one to be invalidated. Now, I do believe, though, right, if RIOT and CLSK are going to get invalidated, then it's possible that this one does too, right? Now, if this was a measured move for the bearish thesis, let's drop this. Where does it fall? Into monthly demand, right? Between 880 and 530, 540, right? Now, this would be the entry of a century, right? This would be an amazing entry. Like, I'm not joking when I would go fucking get I refinance my mortgage, right? Because it's like I could literally make over 100K from a fucking loan, right, in less than a year if we got down here. But until we get these invalidation levels, I'm going to stay bullish and I'm going to keep the bullish count, right? Now the risk here is, is this a completed 5-wave? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's very arguable. It's there. It looks like it. This is supporting this thesis, right? This looks like an ABC correction, right? And if it is, then, fuck this 3-day demand, but realistically, a knife drop down to under $10. I could see it happening. I really could. But until the validation levels happen, we don't need to be super focused on the bear thesis, but we need to be mindful of it as far as cutting the risk, right? Now, the bull thesis is, maybe this was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but then this is a ABC right here, right? And then this is the beginning of wave 3. This is wave 1 of wave 3, which to me looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it could be an ABC for a leading diagonal. The only way that this wave 1 thesis stays intact as long as we do not cut under 1738. Let's see what that says in pre-market. So realistically, it's about $17.07. 1708. So as long as we maintain above 1708, then this could be argued that this is a wave 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks pretty good to me, right? It really can be argued. And if CPI does come in bullish, you're going to see a rocket ship out of all of these because they're sitting in demand. They're sitting in the worst case scenario demand, meaning they're extremely oversold, right? In 2 weeks, Mara dropped 28%. CLSK is down 40%. So I think there's going to be a powerful move, right? Regardless. This blue line is all-time low anchored VWAP. We're sitting above it. Price action is still sitting above it. It was respected here. But we have our levels, we have our invalidation levels, which is the most important thing, right? So until then, I'm bullish. And my hands are going to be on the buy button tomorrow morning in pre-market, right? If that comes in cooler than expected, I think we see a fucking rocket ship on all of these miners. I think miners are going to probably lead the rally if we rally from tomorrow. If we do not, they could lead the downside, right? They're the ones that have been showing the most weakness, right? Even though this was only a 30% drop, but our drop from February, 50%, right? So bearish thesis, but invalidation level, which confirms a bias for the bearish thesis. Until then, I'm bullish, especially with this risk to reward, right? We're sitting here with a 4% risk for the buy zone, and then the true invalidation would be around 6%. So CLSK, RIOT, and MAR are all about 6% away from their invalidation level. And if this was the beginning of wave 3, the beginning would shoot us right back to $30, which is a 50% rally from here. So we need to keep that in mind. But the risk is here. The catalyst for the bearishness, for the bearish thesis, is literally tomorrow. And we need to be mindful of that. We need to see what happens and find the trend, identify the trend, and then act on it accordingly, right? And we're right here. We're right at these invalidation levels for all 3 miners. Now, Bitcoin, we're super far away. We're 13% away. Which realistically, like I said, we could literally go all the way back down to 59.8, and I could really see if inflation is bad, I could see Bitcoin going to 59.8 and never even going to 53K, and all of these still playing out to these extreme oversold, right? This shakeout over the next 4 to 8 weeks, right? Where it drops another 30%, and all of these impatient day traders, retail, just bought the last. Once we get under this price, every single buyer for the last 146 days is underwater. Every single buyer. We want to take that into consideration. That's a lot of people underwater. Same thing here, right? Start printing under this price. Last 156 days, right? And what that does is that causes a sell side imbalance. People start panicking. They start thinking that they're wrong. They over leverage. They put too much money in it. They put all their money in it. It starts going down thousands of dollars. They panic. They sell. So then what does Wall Street need to do? They need to shake the tree. They need to get them out, get everyone to sell, make everyone panic. The best way to do that is through extreme volatility, like a fast knife drop type of move, right? If it's slow, you kind of the medical term is called tachyphylaxis. But if they do it slow, you kind of like, you have a little bit of heart pain and stomach pain one day, then the next day you're kind of adjusted to it mentally. But if you're just dropping and the numbers are going down, you start panicking. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to be quick. But that's the complete outlook for crypto and Bitcoin. And I think tomorrow gives us the directional move, right? The risk to reward is here. I bought some in my Patreon account today. And with Mara, it's a little bit further away from its true validation, but I bought more RIOT, right? And if CLSK was a trade idea, I would buy it too, just because we're just a few percent away, right? But most of my position right now is China, because I think this is going to be where a divergence happens. If stocks start dropping because of US inflation, that's not relevant to China's inflation. And China's inflation is tomorrow. So maybe we get a knife drop in the entire market. And if China dips tomorrow, I'll be buying that dip for anticipation for the China inflation to actually be better, which would then cause a panic sell on Chinese stocks and then a rip the very next day. That's what I'm kind of forecasting. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyways, hopefully this helped you. Cheers.